Orange, Texas. This couple make a run for it from their trailer, grabbing their dogs and diving into a ditch. They're okay, later saying they're thankful to be alive.
What the f, dude?
An hour west, a tornado ripping through Pasadena outside Houston, heavily damaging these apartments and ripping the roofs from nearby homes. Damage across the Houston area, a semi flipped on its side. Downed power lines and trees blocked streets, and this gym shredded. People hid in the restroom.
The metal was crashing, the glass was breaking out. It was extremely loud.
The fast-moving storm delivered wind gusts up to 50 miles an hour, and pounding rain flooded streets across a wide swath of the city. In nearby Deer Park, the tornado cut through a nursing home. The mayor saying all 62 residents evacuated safely.
Did you have any idea it would be this bad?
Not even close.
Edward Salazar owns this heavily damaged shopping center and told me he knew there were people inside at the time.
What was your first thought when you drove up and saw this?
I was worried about the employees, especially Little Caesars, when I saw what's happened to theirs.
All right, folks, we're going to take you live to that press conference at
the
HPD.
Internet Crimes
Let's
Against
listen
Children.
in.
David Van Acker, Supervising Deputy Attorney General for Special Investigations and Prosecutor Division. Adrian Dacroix, Deputy Attorney General, Criminal Justice Division. Victor Curley, Deputy Special Agent in Charge, Homeland Security Investigations. Aaron Carter, Supervisory Special Agent, Pacific Field Office, Army Criminal Investigation Division. Dwayne Young, Supervisory Special Agent, Naval Criminal Investigative Service, Resident Agent, Pearl Harbor. And Ron Emmett, Assistant to the Special Agent in Charge, U.S. Secret Service, Honolulu Field Office. This weekend, due to the collaborative efforts of federal, state, and county law enforcement agencies, 13 individuals were arrested for commercial sexual exploitation of a minor and first-degree electronic enticement of a child. These individuals, all males, range in age from 22 to 61 and come from various backgrounds. They all have local addresses and were arrested either by HPD or the military. This week's arrests confirm that we in law enforcement know too well that there are many individuals who will seek out and prey on the most vulnerable in our community, our keiki. To help protect children from the ongoing expanding threat of online predators, the Hawaii Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force regularly conducts operations across the state. Task Force members come from our 4 county police departments, Military Criminal Investigation, the State Attorney General's Office, Homeland Security, and the Secret Service. These are specially trained investigators who use their collective expertise, knowledge, and resources to identify and investigate those who want to harm our children. We thank them for their dedication and perseverance. As always, we ask the parents and family members, watch out for your young people in your families. Please check what they're doing on the computers and on their phones. Ask who their friends are, where they're going, and what they're doing. You're not being nosy or intrusive, you're being careful and caring. Since the first Operation Keiki Shield was conducted in 2019, there have been over 80 arrests. If you include this week's, that total number comes to over 90. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. Everyone you see here is committed to stopping online predators, and we will continue to support operations such as Keiki Shield until all our children are safe. If you or someone you know is a victim, we urge you to get help. Call 911, contact HPD, or any of the agencies here with us today. We want to help. At this time, we open it up to your questions. Have they been charged? I don't believe all of them have been charged at this time. Correct? Yeah.
And what kind of trouble are we talking?
The two crimes that I identified are Class B felonies. So we're looking at a maximum of 10 years.
All state level, or the military members who arrested will be taken into federal court?
I'm sure the military will take care of the military members in military court systems. Yes.
How many military versus civilian?
I believe four were military, yes.
Chief, do you have a list of the arrestees, names, and whatnot that we can find, or we just got to?
I think we're providing that to you.
Okay, right on. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Newman, talk about some of the tactics these people use to kind of entice taking.
For that, I'd have to ask those individuals that actually participated in the investigation. Somebody want to provide?
I'll offer Ed.
Hello, Ed Aries, the ICAC commander. Most of the bad guys use technology, and we call it technology because it's not only the computer. A lot of this crime is migrated to the phones. So they're using apps. They're seeking young kids online using apps. A lot of the apps that the kids themselves use. That's why it's important to have a good communication between parent and child, because the bad guys realize that all these kids are online and that's where they go looking for them.
Are they creating like fake profiles, or are these profiles of themselves?
No, they do create fake profiles, right? So they try to reach out to our kids, and a lot of the times they're saying that they are also the same age. But in our operation over here, these are adults that are actually looking for kids, which is a little bit different than just a regular person who's posing to be a 16-year-old, right? And they go and they grab a picture of Brad Pitt when he was 16 years old, and that's the kind of thing that they do. But in our operations...
All right, we're going to break away from this press briefing right now. You just heard we have a reporter in the room gathering even more information on this operation involving a task force that netted 13 arrests, and we will have the very latest, as you just heard, Chief Logan there saying that we are also awaiting the list of names of those suspects that were arrested. As soon as we get them, we'll bring you that information on your H&N digital platforms. We've got to move on to the other big story of the entire week. After decades in prison, the man convicted of Dana Ireland's murder was set free yesterday. Let's play out what happened in the courtroom, or at the courtroom in Hilo.
So therefore, the conviction of Albert Ian Schweitz for murder in the second degree, kidnapping, and sexual assault in the first degree is hereby vacated, and Mr. Schweitz shall be released immediately from custody in this court.
And there you see it in this exclusive video only H&N has. Albert Ian Schweitzer, after decades in prison, set free. Our Lynn Kawano was in the courtroom. Lynn, describe to us what we are seeing here and what it was like being there.
It was total chicken skin moment. You know, Jonathan, when Ken Lawson from the Hawaii Innocence Project first reached over to hug Albert Ian Schweitzer, they call him Ian, it seemed awkward, like he couldn't move, he couldn't hug him back. That's because he still had the handcuffs on. So it was a lot of chicken skin when they were able to finally take those cuffs off and he was able to hug family members after more than 20 years behind bars for a crime he didn't commit. You could see his mother in there crying. As it got closer, this was a long hearing. This hearing started 9 a.m. and it didn't end until about 4:45 in the evening. So it was a lot that they had to sit through, the family had to sit through. When the judge was finally making his ruling, his mother just put her hands around her face. You could tell she was crying. You could see moments where Ian had been choking up and crying as the judge was reading the ruling. And we knew at that point, given all the new evidence, given the DNA technology, that the judge was going to let him go free at that moment. And his family, they've been waiting for this for so many years. It's been such a heartbreaking story, not just for them, but also for the family of Dana Ireland. You know, her parents are now dead, but they fought a long time to get justice for Dana, and then to see this happen and that justice still hasn't been done because whoever this unknown male, the contributor of all the DNA at the scene, and we're talking multiple samples, we're talking blood, semen, sweat, skin, all kinds of DNA left at the scene on various pieces of clothing, on other pieces of evidence. And to not know who that person is still all these years later, it was in 1991 when she was raped and murdered, to not know again, it's heartbreaking also for the Big Island community.
Yeah, Lynn, take us back in time a little bit now and give us the backstory, but you just were some there. But talk about what this crime actually took place and how the community, there was even reference to it in the testimony or from the attorneys yesterday, saying that they really were out to try to prosecute someone. There was a lot of pressure on HPD and on prosecutors at the time, and that might have even led to this wrongful conviction, correct?
Yeah, there was a lot of pressure at the time. You know, I remember this, 1991, I was in high school. Dana Ireland was riding her bike in Kapoho. She was visiting her parents who moved and lived on the Big Island, as well as her sister. And she was, it seemed like, hit while she was on the bike. That scene, though, 5 miles away, 30 minutes later, she was found unconscious, nude from the waist down. She was, you know, really struggling to survive. And at the hospital, she died from blood loss, massive amounts of blood loss. It was a terrible story. And everybody in the Big Island community wanted to know who did this, right? It's a small community out there in the Kapoho area. And they needed someone to pay for the crime, is the way that the attorneys described it in court. 1991 was when this happened, Christmas Eve. 1997 was when Schweitzer was arrested, taken away, and he wasn't convicted until 2000. So many years had gone by, and the attorneys for the Schweitzers said the prosecution kind of reached and needed someone. And at that moment, some of these prisoners were coming forward, a man named Mike Ortiz, there were some others who started coming forward, and they were getting reduced sentences. Some were getting reward money. There were a lot of deals being made, and the time gap there, it wasn't because DNA pinpointed on the Schweitzers or new technology pinpointed on them. It was other people who just came forward and started naming possible suspects. And that really became a very difficult, when you look at it now, obviously the judge looked at it now and said, clearly this was a mistake. There were problems from the beginning, and this shouldn't have happened. This shouldn't have happened.
No, and there was clearly a lot of reaction outside the court. I want to play some of that out for our viewers right now.
Grateful, very thankful. Give glory to all God Almighty, my Lord and Savior. Thank you for blessing me and my team, my family, and thank you to the judge for being an honorable judge, and the prosecutors for doing the honorable thing and restoring honor in that court system.
This has been the first time in the state of Hawaii where there's been a conviction integrity process, to where the prosecutors, I'm talking about the entire state, has sat down with the defense and our Innocence Project, worked together to work cooperatively to find out who actually did this, to seek justice.
That's Ken Lawson speaking there. So, Lynn, he was referencing sort of how they had to work together to make this happen. What is he exactly talking about? What was the process to make this wrongful conviction be overturned?
Ken Lawson with the Hawaii Innocence Project has been working on this case since 2010. He's been working on it for a long time. And the previous prosecuting attorney, Mitch Roth, started working with the Innocence Project when he too looked at the evidence and thought, there was something more that needed to be done here, and agreed to help and turn over all his records. And we're talking about boxes and boxes and boxes of evidence that were pulled out of the archives, that were pulled out of their, you know, the as we call it, the basement, right? They keep files there. It's not literally a basement, but they had to dig down deep to find these files from 1991 and the early 90s. And they turned it over to the Innocence Project. And it was a Hawaii Innocence Project with Ken Lawson leading the way on this case, but also the New York Innocence Project. Barry Scheck was out there, and he did the closing statements yesterday as well. They had a team of attorneys working on this who really believe that there was an injustice here. And so they all worked together. The prosecutor's office, they did make a few statements in court. And Keldon Walton, who is the new prosecuting attorney of the Big Island, did say that they are looking for the killer. And he is asking for anyone to call in tips if they remember anything. You know, you'd be surprised. Sometimes decades later, someone does want to come forward. And hopefully they get some information that can lead them to the right person. This person that we've described now as unknown male number one. Only one person, it appears, committed this crime. And it wasn't the three who were in prison.
So, Lynn, I wanted to end with you right there, asking about what's next. You just hit on how someone has gotten away with murder for decades, but what's next for the others involved in this case?
Frank Pauline died in prison in 2015. His attorney is going to work on getting his conviction overthrown posthumously. And Sean Schweitzer, so it's Ian's brother, Ian's younger brother, who has been home with the family all this time, but was also convicted. So his attorney is going to work to get his conviction thrown out as well. You know, it's a long process. This doesn't happen very quickly, but the priority was Ian because he was still behind bars. He was at Saguaro Correctional Center in Arizona. He was flown back Monday in the very early morning hours for the hearing on Tuesday, but he was the priority. So now that they've gotten that done, you know, they've got the path to get their convictions vacated, and that's what's next in this case. As far as the Ireland, you know, the investigation, they have tested dozens of people in terms of DNA and tried to find unknown male number one, and so far that hasn't happened. They've even used the national database, no hits so far. They're just hoping to get some leads and hoping someone will come forward.
And Lynn Kawano, Chief Investigative Reporter here at H&N, bringing us this exclusive video and so many exclusive access to this story. You've done a number of interviews over the year, documentary right now on our YouTube and H&N digital platforms from your previous reporting as well. Thanks so much.
Joining us now is H&N's Washington correspondent, Brendan Cullerton. Brendan, President Biden today reversed his course, announcing that the U.S. will send 31 Abrams tanks to Ukraine. What does this signal to U.S. allies and, of course, Russia?
Well, this was actually a reversal from President Biden, who had previously said he didn't think these tanks would actually help Ukraine that much, but it appears it has already accomplished part of its goal, which was to get other NATO allies on board. You see, Germany, after the U.S. announced we're sending 31 tanks, Germany announced they'll be sending 14 tanks to Ukraine. France announced they'll be sending armored vehicles. Other countries are going to be sending air defense systems. So really, this kind of gets the West kind of joining together, NATO joining together and going against Russia. As far as what it sends to Russia, it sends that message that the West is unified in defense of Ukraine. Now, it's a fine line that President Biden is walking here because we as a country do not want to go to war with Russia. So he made clear that we are not attacking Russia. We are sending these to defend Ukraine. And he made a point of, in his speech, saying that if Russian troops leave Ukraine, they won't have to deal with these tanks.
Yeah, it was a big decision on President Biden's behalf. But what are lawmakers telling you? Are they in support of this decision or opposing it?
Well, there's fairly widespread support for this. Not everybody is in favor of this, but I even spoke to some fairly fiscally conservative Republicans today that said that we need to support Ukraine. I'll give the example of Senator Tommy Tuberville. He's on the Armed Services Committee. He said he's been on the ground in Ukraine, and he's generally pretty mindful of how much money we're spending on the war effort. But he says Ukraine needs this. He said he's not sure this is the right amount. He kind of echoed the president's statement, saying he's not sure what these 30 tanks will do, 31, but at the same time, he's not against it. And he says that this is important to get other NATO allies on board. Him and a lot of other senators have the same thought there.
Got it. Thank you so much for that. Let's turn now to the future of George Santos in Congress. The speaker recently spoke on Santos's future. How has the tone shifted around George Santos?
Well, McCarthy said today in kind of another reversal, because he hadn't said much about Santos, he said that if the House Ethics Committee finds that Santos broke a law, he'll be expelled from Congress. You do have to vote to remove a member of Congress. It's somewhat of a different process than impeachment, but you're not just automatically removed for breaking a law. But up until today, McCarthy had been hesitant to say he would go that route, so that is a bit of a shift for him there.
Got it. And one more question for you. Vice President Kamala Harris will be in California tonight after a recent string of mass shootings. Now, what does the White House hope to accomplish with this trip?
This is really a show of federal support for those victims of the 3 shootings in California. President Biden let Californians know that he's spoken with Governor Newsom, trying to find a way for the federal government to help, in addition to what he's calling for as far as gun control that he's asking Congress for, things like eliminating assault weapons or trying to end high-capacity magazine sales here in the United States.
Got it. H&N's Washington correspondent Brendan Cullerton, thank you so much for your insight today. All right, guys, let's go ahead and get a look at our island weather with our Guy Hoggy.
Now, we've got a front that's moving in, right? That's going to shift the winds. This is what this is going to look at. The shifting winds, stronger winds expected over the weekend as well. And with those winds coming out of the north and eventually northeast, that's going to clear out the fog. Also, you can expect cooler temperatures over the next several days. The 7-day forecast really shows that pretty well. So for the Kona side, they still will have some little bit of fog. And then that disturbance is going to come in with scattered showers through Sunday. And then it's going to be especially wetter over on the Hilo side. They could even get some heavy rain over the weekend that could even cause some flooding. So for us, this is what we're, for Kauai, this is what we're looking at. A few leftover showers today, drier by tomorrow and Friday. And then that disturbance drops in with more rain through Monday. And then the disturbance from Maui County starts in tomorrow, and they could see some heavy rainfall in through Sunday as well. So get those umbrellas ready. You'll need them from time to time over the next several days.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hoggy. Let's see what the internet is talking about today from the Feeds Times. And you know, sometimes love bites, and the Honolulu Zoo knows that.
Yikes.
So this Valentine's Day, they're offering something very unique, a special gift for maybe someone you like or maybe someone you don't like in your life. So for $5, $10, or $20 in a donation, you can name a mealworm, a cricket, or you could even... You can do it after an X, or even have the zoo feed them to an animal that named critter. Yikes. Hey, little Dylan.
Hey,
Hi.
I was just going to say, I know who I'm getting them for.
Yeah,
Jonathan.
Thank you. Much love. The person will also get a special digital Valentine's Day card, letting them know the snack. And then for $100, the zoo will even create a personalized video showing the animal eating the treat. Whoa, we're getting morbid this year for Valentine's Day.
Delicious. We love it.
Speaking of delicious, we're going to do a crazy segue right now for your good news now. It's called the Most Oreo. The cookie has the traditional chocolate wafer on the outside, but on the inside, there's this special cookie and cream filling. These special cookies, just announced right there, go on sale on Monday. Hopefully they make it here to the islands. They're going to be $5, which I think is pretty high for Oreos, but I haven't bought them in a while.
So is it just double, triple stuffed? What is it?
It does look rather thick there. Like, the stuffing looks thick, but, I mean, you have to have the cookies and cream in there, so you have to make extra space for all that, I'm guessing.
Interesting.
That's just my theory.
Looks like a lot of sugar, if you ask me.
Yeah. Oh, I need it. Yeah, right? We're halfway through this week, folks. Get your Oreo fix, get your sugar fix, and we will get your fix of the news.
And include them with your Valentine's Day order. Ladies and gentlemen, that does it for us here in the H&N Digital Center. I'm Dylan Ancheta alongside our Jonathan Soppy. Have a great day. Aloha.
Yum.